To achieve this pumping effect in Ableton, you don't need a LFO tool or shaper box, you already have what you need inside Ableton Live. There are 3 different ways you can set this up, although they are not made equal. The last 2 are actually very bad, so don't watch them because you don't need them. Starting with the shaper MIDI, which most closely resembles a LFO tool, Kickstarter or shaper box. First of all, we need our kick to be a MIDI track, so that the shaper can be triggered by MIDI input and work as an envelope. Now let's grab shaper MIDI and drop it on our kick track. The kick pattern is 4 on the floor, so make sure that the rate is set to a quarter note. Set the velocity to 0 to replicate the desired shape accurately. Next, we have to map shaper MIDI to the volume of the music. Do not map it directly to the mixer volume because it will lock this parameter, making it impossible to use it in the mixing stage. Instead, let's put a utility device on the track and map its gain knob. Let's create a desired shape for our sidechain. Disable snapping to have more control. It seems to work properly, however, the gain is jumping too high. That's because the gain knob on the utility reaches plus 35 dB. Let's set the maximum value on the shaper to 50%, so it stops right at the 0 dB mark. One thing you should be aware of is the clicks created by sudden interruption of sound. You might want to smooth out the sidechain curve at the end. However, this creates another issue. When the kick stops playing, the music becomes silent as well, because the last known value was 0. You can solve this by turning the shaper off just before the kick stops playing or by moving the smoothing curve to the start of the shape. This creates a different feel for the sidechain, so choose wisely depending on your track. In modern production, sidechain is mostly required to give more space for the kick drum, rather than achieving a noticeable pumping effect. In this case, timing is crucial. Zooming in on our kick in Simpler, we can see that its length is approximately 140 milliseconds. And by making a selection on the timeline in Ableton and pointing our mouse at it, it will inform us about its duration. In our case, a 16th note is right about 140 milliseconds as well. Currently, shaper MIDI is set to a quarter note, which means a 16th note will be a fourth of the panel. The grid comes in quite handy, so we can precisely set our points. Ultimately, you can assign the same sidechain to different tracks at different levels. Let's open this hamburger menu and map yet another utility on the percussion track, this time increasing the minimum value to achieve a less pronounced effect. Shaper MIDI is not quick to set up, so I suggest creating your own default template to save some production time. Similar to Shaper, we can use envelope MIDI, but it definitely has less control. Let's load it onto our kick track and map it to the volume of the music. Disable velocity and invert the minimum and maximum values. I find it more intuitive to use just the release knob, so I'll set the decay to 1 millisecond and sustain to 0 dB. Now the release will be our total time before the music comes back to its normal gain. This value here will change the curve on the release segment. The next method is one of the oldest. It involves feeding a click into a compressor. Load a compressor on our music channel, activate sidechain and choose the kick for it. Bring the threshold all the way down, the ratio all the way up and set little to no attack. Again, the release will be our main control, but the kick will duck everything for its whole duration. So we group the kick, load the click, mute it and then select it in the menu down here. Say that 10 times in a row. Anyway, it never really works correctly for me. That's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching and consider subscribing.